this one is going to be about not only anti-forensics, but also the purposes of digital forensics and anti-forensic analysis, which obviously is going to be very time-consuming. I think this is going to take at least, and I'm also brewing something, I'm also brewing my coffee and stuff like that, so we might go on a 5 or 10 minute break when I'm done. So let me finalize these. Okay, let me do these. By the way, about your homework, do you remember your homework when they are with personalized scores? 15 to 9 p.m. Do you? You don't remember? Okay, that's that's something that says a lot about you. That says a lot about you. Jordan, by the way, don't take me too seriously right now because I'm on 3 days of no sleep. 50 questions. No, not. Oh, good morning then. Not the 50 questions. So, at the end of this week, you are actually going to have 2 tests. One is going to actually 3. Actually, I'm gonna have 3 tests. One is going to be for the extended course material, about this forensics. So okay, you're gonna have 3 tests at the end of this week. So on the weekends, you're gonna have tests on extended course material. You're gonna have tests on digital forensics course material, and you're also gonna have tests on the personalized coaching material. So I think you're good, to be honest with you. I think you should actually start reading the material that I sent you. Like, seriously. If you don't understand something, always refer to me. You can always send them back to me. You can ask me questions, because that tells me that, no, seriously. So that I also recommend that you do ask me questions, because I prefer if you ask me questions, because, it's just better for me to answer you that way. It also tells me that you are actually interested in what I do. Right now, it tells me that you pretty much, not only do you understand what I'm talking about, but you also do your own research. Is that the case, or do you not do your research? And am I being misled? Or am I being lied to? Okay. Sometimes, I guess. Okay. So most of the you two important, 50 questions. That's a part of his personalized course. So I know that I said that I will not be having any. Yeah, I know that I said that I will not be having any presentations, but I just made one. I had this prepared for Echo, but I might as well just use it for these purposes. Anyway, so here is the anti-forensics. Let me just turn this into a pop-up, or how do I minimize this? They should have a function. I can see their comments or text here, I think. Well, they really should update the screen sharing part, because I really want to do something about this. Okay, let me maximize this. Now that it is on full screen, I think this is gonna cover. Yeah, it's gonna cover. Okay, never mind, actually. Let me see if this opens. It does open. Okay. So this introduction is going to be, so I think this webinar is also going to take at least 2 hours. What time is it right now? It's at 2 p.m. So it's going to take at least 2 hours, or at least 1 hour and 40 minutes, because it is a very, very fast topic. Okay. Um, I will also try to turn this into a 1 hour webinar if I can summarize the explanations. But we're dealing with the introduction to anti-forensics, forensics and cybersecurity. As we have mentioned in the previous webinars, and as we have mentioned in the presentations that I have made about digital forensics and incident response, you can find them in their forums below, so they are archived. Forensics, digital forensics and incident response is actually a sub-category or a specialization of cybersecurity. So another fun fact is that because digital forensics is a sub-specialization, so it's a specialized course or specialized expertise, so experience, most courses online that you will find have a no refund policy because it is a specialized course and you are specializing in pursuit of becoming an actual expert at this field. So that's also a fun part about this. Obviously, anti-forensics deals with everything that digital forensics fights against. Anti-forensics in and of itself is actually the method itself of concealing digital data or traces or digital evidence. So, for example, even erasing event logs or deleting your search journal both of those are classic examples of anti-forensic techniques. Anti-forensics are meant to hide, tamper with evidence, or mislead, confuse, or evade detections and detectors and experts and digital forensic professionals. What it also means is that anti-forensics, because of the dangers of anti-forensics, because you guys probably know that it's the same in the real world that the anti-forensic, the criminals, cybercrime, and all of that stuff has an advantage over digital forensics because it is vastly impossible, or sometimes even really, really hard to prove that something has happened. In that regard, most companies, it's not by mistake or by accident that I talk about corporational or organizational digital forensics, and I talked about those in the previous webinars, that most companies or most organizations actually establish, not only do they establish, their own databases for computers, they also establish links to those computers. So there is one database that governs all of the corporational devices, all of the corporational computers. You'll also notice, you'll notice this if you guys are still in school or if you guys are still in college or university. You also notice that almost every single computer has some sort of a solution installed on their devices. Those that look like antiviruses, but also monitor network traffic, so to also monitor malware, also monitor everything on the device, also monitor event logs. Those are not antiviruses, at least not the common antivirus solutions that you need. Those are actually digital forensic solutions for cybersecurity of those companies, because your schools, your universities, your colleges are actual companies. They are companies. They are either administrative companies, or the government-funded schools, or they are public schools, or they are private schools. Private schools refer to limited liability companies. All of those are companies. That's why they use or utilize those types of things, or at least should utilize this, because you guys probably also have those issues at school that the school computers get hacked, and every time you plug your USB devices or chips on those computers, it gets infected. So that's actually something that every single corporation or organization employs. And the purpose of those solutions, actually, let me give you examples on Google. It's a very simple way to actually find those. The first one would be even, let's say, Kaspersky antivirus that works, but let's say Corporal is DVR solutions. Alright, so there are a lot of things, as you can see here. Let's take something like, what do we take? Let's take, I guess this one. Alright, so those are the solutions. So, for example, this one. Let's accept all of those cookies. And then you see those advertisements on those digital forensic corporations and websites that are experiencing a breach or experiencing something, things that, and they also prompt you to buy their solutions. Those are for corporations. That's why most of the time they ask you for business emails. They are meant for businesses, so they are not meant for individual research. Right. Now that that's out of the way, I hope that you guys understand the differences between forensics and anti-forensics. So anti-forensics are the techniques used to hide or bypass those solutions. So for example, I mentioned in the previous webinar that there have been recent malware samples. I'm going to actually Google that. There is a malware that bypasses the UEFI protection. Recent malware report on UEFI protection bypass. So is it this one? Yeah, it's this one. Hybrid Peja. I think it's a Russian malware. And it is a malware that bypasses. So let me look. It says all cookies, whatever. This actually bypasses the any solution. It also bypasses, exploits the UEFI, UEFI weaknesses. So this also gives you this website actually gives you a deeper look into how exactly this malware functions, and I recommend you guys to actually research those things, because bypasses in gaming communities are highly inspired by those things. For example, this one, what this does is that it accesses the EFI directory, which you have no idea to access, no way to access actually, and it deletes UEFI secure boot. I'm pretty sure that deletes it. Now, I think they have currently. Okay, so there's a blog post over here. Okay, yeah, okay. It's the same page. Anyway, ESET. This is actually the security solution that many schools use. ESET, by ESET. This is very nice, by the way. It's a very nice security because it actually gives you access to not only remote access traces, but also script executions. It also prevents you from many other things, So I wish this was free, or like for local computers. I think it is for local computers too. But anyway, you get the point. So this actually is an extension of Black Lotus. So which was the one of its kind of a malware that exploited in 2022, I think, that exploited the UEFI bypasses. They employ the anti-forensic techniques, and those anti-forensic techniques are documented here. MITRE ATT&CK techniques that it uses. Right, so those are the MITRE ATT&CK frameworks, and this gives you the ID of the techniques that were used. So what you notice here, how to read those techniques, is that this first ID, so T technique, the ID of the technique is the parent technique. So this is an entire branch of techniques. And this 001 after the dot that you see means that this is a sub-technique, as you also can see here, of the whole branch of techniques. Right. This also even leads to the sub-techniques of this tactic. So what this means is that what these UEFI Black Lotus, not Black Lotus, but these, actually I'm on the Black Lotus UEFI bootkit. So this one is a ransomware with UEFI compatibility and a UEFI bootkit component developed by unknown authors. So they have no idea who developed them. It's been 3 days and still. So it is a bootkit. which means that it starts before the UFI can load. Matter of fact, it actually deletes the UFI, the .ufi file. I'm pretty sure that pretty sure that delete .ufi. Right. So recovering legitimate bootloaders to benefit the credit from the installation process. Finds decryption process. So this even explains to you how exactly the malware works. This gives you the code of the malware as well. This is pretty interesting, to be honest with you. Imagine how much you need to know about UFI to make something that deletes it. Yeah, this is actually a crazy exploit. What they do is that they exploit those things. So another thing about anti-forensics is that MITRE attack is not the only thing that you should be looking at when you are learning. I'm not sure that it's already fixed. I think it is, because I saw that it was on their GitHub. So these are all the files that are related to it. And there's a thing, this can teach you a lot about UFI bypasses. That's why I'm even covering this, although I can't really tell you guys a lot about that. As you can see, those files are found on the device. They also have reports from January. This is an entire introduction to UFI, secure basically. So you can read these, you can get the paths to this, you can get the names of those, the reload or UFI. All of this deal with malware. And this is also a demonstration of that. This is on Linux OS. So you guys can watch that. I'm going to send you guys this entire thing. If you guys want, I can also summarize all of this. Or write down the most important parts, conclusions. But they also have their conclusions. So there's that. So there's also another blog post. So if you guys just follow the blog post and analysis and explanations, you guys are gonna get to the root or understand or comprehend how exactly anti-forensics works. There's also the exploits, Windows exploits for anti-forensics that you can search. Not interested. So there are websites that actually list the exploits of the computers. I think I linked it into the screenshot guide. But yeah, right. So I think this is MFT, the standard information, and then there is this is analysis of MFT. So that's also interesting. You guys can also just read these if you want to understand more. And so as you can see, a lot of information is on the internet because people who work with those corporations actually analyze all of this. So that's all about the this new malware, and this is what they use to bypass even the corporational security measures or the solutions. So the next thing you should, the next thing in this introduction is that, I just explained this. There are categories of anti-forensic tools. For example, as I mentioned about the sub-techniques and techniques, original techniques, categories, and blah blah. Data hiding, so like steganography, encryption, encoding, as well as archiving, is a measure of data hiding. There is also artifact wiping, so log tampering, secure deletion that I talked about in the previous webinar. There's also journal deletion and also creating kernel drivers in order to override permissions of, for example, even wiping data from process memory. There's also trail obfuscation, so that means that you modify the attributes of a file, so like timestamping and log manipulation. So there is a difference between log tampering and log manipulation. Tampering is when you basically erase data. When you erase data, the data is no more there. And that leaves, exploits that the forensic analyst can use in order to determine what you're doing. And that there is a manipulation, which means that they edit those timestamps. Then you have the anti-analysis tools, right? So the packers, obfuscations, virtual machine detections, and stuff like that I talked about in the previous webinars. So there are the examples, so you guys can read these. I don't really want to cover this entire PowerPoint right now because you guys can read this, and I want to demonstrate things to you. So there's also Alright, so this is, okay, it's just, you guys don't really need me to explain this to you because, I already explained those in the previous webinars, what digital forensics is, what anti-forensics is. Now let's go to the practical parts of anti-forensics. There are some things that you guys want to know about forensics, anti-forensics. Is that Echo's webinar? What? No, it's not Echo's webinar. Actually, no, it's not Echo's webinar. Actually, give me 5 minutes. I'll be right back. I have to do something real quick. Yeah, wait. Okay, and I'm back. So, um, so, okay. So, as I said, the anti-forensics are the methods that the adversaries use in order to actually conceal the data. That means that developing malware, for example, is not anti-forensics, it's just malware development. So what I suggest you guys do is that you should be really careful with your computers, because sometimes investigations really rely on those types of data in order to tell or prove guilt, prove actions, prove things that might be incriminating in all sorts of cases. So here are the examples that I wanted to show you guys. First of all, well, at least the theoretical examples. First of all, every anti-forensic method deals with concealing data, or hiding data, or deleting data. So an example of that would be to clear event logs. Detection of clearing event logs can be found in event logs themselves. However, there are anti-forensic methods that only work on actually business computers, so those that are linked to one server, that those techniques actually override the permissions of the event log channels and make it so that nothing can appear. These techniques can be also found on YouTube. So for example, bypassing event log creation. Let's just add anti-forensics. Disrupting the event log service. Okay. So these are the blogs that talk about that. This also tells you exactly how that works. And this also gives you the security IDs. So for example, this one is for the, deletion. And there's also a system event ID. And there's also a command line of this. So this, if you guys actually think about it, the best way to learn forensics or screen sharing in your case is to actually research anti-forensics, and especially those types of blogs, so that you know what to expect. And by the way, this also explains everything to you, how exactly you would detect this. Okay, this really tells you how you would detect this. So the best way to counter is to learn what they know. Yes, exactly. So that's what you should be doing. That's what you should be orienting on. So this block, for example, let me explain this block in this case. This tells you that there are service host thread tampering. So this shows you that there are threads that are related to the event log status in the SVC process, especially this DLL. This one is related to the event log process. And then there are basically worker threads, blah, 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 blah. And then what you have to do is, well, okay. This is an anti-forensic utility, this one. This just kills the log threads. How would you detect that? Obviously, event logs, okay. But as you can see here, as I mentioned previously, you see sysmon, which means that this is a business computer. This is not a local, single-use computer, which means that they can't. So this has to be an enterprise Windows. Otherwise, they can't do this. You can't detect it this way because you don't have sysmon, which every organizational computer does have. So what do you do if you have disabled services, or if you have disabled threads? Can't you manually enable sysmon? Yes, but sysmon only monitors everything after you enable it, or after you. Oh, sysmon is an application, by the way. So you have to have this executable on the device to execute it and monitor the device in order for it to actually give you something of value. So the way you would do that, I'm going to show you guys how to track down what an application does. So let's say I want to test or check what autoclicker does on my device, OP autoclicker. There are forensic analysis tools that you can use to achieve that goal. First of all, you can use sysmon, obviously. This is a sysinternals tools that I have referenced previously. So you don't really use this. So this is what they would call the most unreliable method. So don't execute this immediately. You don't have to wait for this at first. It would be better if you also, had sysmon executed when or before you downloaded autoclicker, but it's fine. In our case, it's fine. So this is going to monitor everything on the device. Every TCP connection, every file replacement, every registry change, every rename, or everything, except for user journal. So this doesn't really monitor user journal, which tells you that you should also have something enabled on the background to also monitor user journal. But you don't really need that because you know that every trace of user journal or every trace of file activity is logged in the J file in the MFT. I think this didn't execute because, yeah, okay. Because, yeah, do I need... What do they have a GUI version? Oh, they don't really. Can't run on my computer. Okay. Sysmon. This just can't run my computer. Okay, that's crazy. How about this one? Okay, that's just crazy. Okay, that's just crazy. So this is supposed to be... Oh, I think I know why. Yeah. I mixed sysmon with procmon, which is process monitor. Okay, never mind. So the way you execute this is with CMD, and this tells you what exactly you should do. So I'm going to obviously read the copyright and stuff like that. So you have the usage, so installation. You also need the configuration file. Obviously, this requires a reboot to be installed on your device, and then a new channel in event-logs opens, which is for sysmon. So this is a permanent installation until you uninstall it. So this is a very good thing if you guys want to, suggest to servers, or tournaments to have those things enabled, because this is a very secure way, because it is developed by professionals and you guys don't need third-party tools or client-side anti-cheats. So the next thing is obviously Procmon. This is a process monitor. So this is what a lot of people use when it comes to. By the way, this is also what let's see. Let me hide the things. This is also okay. Let me also hide this. This is also something that 5M servers use. Class with system, is that true? That is the okay. You can, but that's also the stupidest thing I've ever heard, because you don't need. I can show you actually how to detect ads. You can just use alternate data stream viewer. You can also use, the scripts and methods that I have mentioned about ads detection. That is also in the guide. You can ask the AI. You can also just use journal string change. Okay, string change. That also applies to folders. String change means that something was changed in that file, and you should always check that file. So, for example, if you need to use a journal, do I have a journal trace? Of course, I don't. Now, in short terms about this Procmon, you guys will notice that if I start the monitoring of the device, and I also have to, where is this? Where is this? Capture. If I start capturing and do auto scroll, this is going to just, enable everything. And what event filter? What is enable? Show profile events. Okay. Start capturing and also enable auto scroll. This is going to show you everything that's going on your device right now. Starting from, minimizing folders, opening folders, accessing Discord. Now I'm going to just execute auto here right now. This is going to show everything. What I also recommend you guys have is that you should also have search everything in the background, because that's going to show you if there are files that this application drops. As you can see, every time I move this, multiple processes get logged. If I enable this, you'll see how things still speed up to log. Let's stop this. Just closes, and pause the capturing. So what you have done right now is that you have monitored a behavior of a, let's say, malware, in this case autoclicker. All you have to do is just go to Control F and autoclicker. Find up, find next. Let's see. Match case. Okay, that's just so annoying. Or you can also just, just file, export, or save the, events. I think it's you go to, so you have several things. I should probably explain everything to you guys. You have several things, okay? In tools, you can only have registry summary, so only registry entries, stock summary, so that's only, okay, then I have to wait for this. But this just gonna show you stacks, of operations. Then you have the cross-reference and network summary. Oh, you get the point, right? It's file summary. It's gonna show you only file details. Then you have the events. In events, what you can do is that you can go to properties and you can edit exactly. So you have something highlighted, right? Let's highlight this. Explorer. Go to event, go to properties. Then you have all the DLLs, all the files, or everything that's loaded in this event, this specific event. So this one accessed registry, but this process had everything loaded all of those DLLs. This will also have Discord, because Discord is also open. And you can check the stacks of it. Those are the dependencies of this process. Okay, so if you want to analyze a file or folder, which I'm going to find the autoclicker right now, so that I can showcase that to you. Jesus Christ. Okay, it's here. This is when the autoclicker was running. You know that because you have setting for key, query name, query key, query value, all of this. You also notice that there are other processes that have been opened with autoclicker execution, like this one. This is my graphics driver, which means that this exact thing is also going to include information about that autoclicker being executed. So the way with it, what you do after this is that you see this file repository, you see this exe. What this means is that you see the event, okay? The event is the autoclicker was executed. Although right now I have selected this thing, I double click this here, I go to event, and it shows you this, okay? It also shows you the thread ID of this autoclicker and the execution date. So that, and also the duration. And it also gives you the operation, query name information of the file. This means that this process has saved the data about autoclicker.exe. So I have to find this process now. RTSC. Okay, so here's the process. I go here, I go to memory, strings. Okay, let me see. It's probably okay. I saw something. I have no idea what I saw, but basically this means that this autoclicker relies on that process as well. So if this was a malware, this would show you everything about this file or the processes that it accesses. So before the autoclicker was running, right? So all of these laws are when the autoclicker was executed. So it was clicking. Before that, we see these logs. Okay, wait, it's even before this. Right, so it's somewhere around here. You see search filter host. And you open this, you will see strange things, right? So this is related to the autoclicker itself. The very first thing you see is that it has a command line, a strange command line. You have no idea what it is, you have no idea what it did, but it was here for some time. And it was profiling the process, which means that it was monitoring this autoclicker. So what this means is that those processes most likely have something to do with this autoclicker itself. Right, as you notice, this also gives you the DLL host. It also gives you the ID to the process that it was monitoring or executing. It could very much be the autoclicker itself. But essentially, what this means is that those processes that executed before the autoclicker, it was before this, right? Okay, so this was the execution of the autoclicker. Those most likely have, especially because they have the process profiling flags, they most likely have saved the autoclicker execution traces in their own memory, especially the query name information file, because this one specifically will always save autoclicker.exe, because it is directly related to it. So let me see the very first execution of it. Okay. Right. So when you executed autoclicker, you notice that a lot of antivirus flags showed up. That means that this antivirus monitored the file and blocked the file from doing something, right? That's why you see the query file on the autoclicker itself, which doesn't show you the path to the autoclicker, and then you see that just locking the file. And then you have the, loading the image, loading the DLLs. What this means is that this basically shows you what exactly the file depends on. You can use this knowledge if you want to, for example, analyze what DLLs are loaded in this file and what stack entries this file has. Right, so in this case, this also relies on all of those DLLs. You can go to the properties of any of those. For example, we have the application container. Go to the project, go to the properties, shows you what exactly this file is. So if they rely on external DLLs, they will not really have the version information. So those are like the signatures. All of those are, for example, right now Windows things. We also know that this autoclear, when executed, drops a folder. Right, and that folder has icons. So this is still not the very first trace of the autoclicker. I hope that I can find somehow. Oh, okay, nice. Autoclicker works. So let me copy this, go all the way up, select this, go and down. Now this is going to go through all of the logs, and it's going to find the first ever creation or execution of autoclicker. It links us to this for some reason. Oh, okay, it's here. The first trace or the log there, Explorer because I downloaded it. No, Explorer because I executed it. So this was the create file. Okay, yeah, it's download. Create file. It just created the file. Yeah. There's a desired access, read attributes, open reparse point, read write delete, open result opened. It created a file. Okay, yeah, that's a fair point. Let's see the next. There's a way to open. Yeah, okay, yes. And then you have that this queries the file information, so what exactly this file is. So this is probably, it also shows the user. So this is important because sometimes when they deploy files remotely, this is going to show you the user of the file. I think this check exactly is for the antivirus check. The next one is a close file, and then we have the create file, here basic information, no close file. Create file. Okay, so as you can see, this also has ctgmon, which means that this thing most likely also logged the autoclicker traces, because it went directly right after this operation, and they have the same exact time, right? Although there's a slight difference in the milliseconds, but these two came right after one another. So this also gives you hints on which processes might have them. Another thing that you could do is that you just use the magnet process capture, and that's going to show you exactly. Okay, this one said create file mapping, which means that this is the execution of this. Yeah, page execute. Yeah, with only readers, which means that we are close. This also opened the registry key, and this shows you which registry key it opened. So let's see if there's anything in this registry key that's of use for us. File type. Okay, so this means that this file got cached in this registry. Not under extensions, but file types for some reason. I don't know why, but if you find the .exe here, it should have the contents if they're not encrypted. Let me see. .zip. Okay, no, I can't seem to find the .exe. Okay, so that also probably means that this is a creation of the folder and not the execution of the file itself. Which is what you can do. You can just sort these by paths and check exactly what it is, and also maximize this, minimize this, however you want, and check exactly where those are. Okay. This is also synchronizing with OneDrive for some reason. I have no idea why. Probably because it's it's just a file. Same thing. Okay, so this one just mapped the autoclicker, which means that we are very close to the execution time of this file. Query based on the information file. So this is supposed to be the execution because you look at the information of the file before you execute it, right, on the device for the antivirus to process it. Which means you're going to have to really go through the trouble of finding the execution. So all of this was creation of the file. All of the logs that we just saw were the download of autoclear. Now we're going to go to the execution. So this tells you exactly what happens when the file gets downloaded. And if the file was downloaded from PowerShell, it would show you that it was using PowerShell to download the file. If it was using something like Visual Studio, it will also show you that. This is a very powerful tool if you want to actually analyze malware yourself and create detections yourself. Been using this for a while now. Thing is, it will log with process monitor. However, actually we can do that. We can do that actually. So let me rename this into test subject.exe. Now I'm going to copy this path. I'm going to open the CMD. Let's test what happens to the system if we execute these through CMD. The thing is that we should have probably also used task scheduler for those purposes. But no, I don't really have the energy or time for that right now. So let's go to okay, double space. So let me enable this. And also enable auto scrolling. What you also can do is that you can erase all of the logs. Which means that you can clear all of the logs. So you start from the very beginning so that you have clear logs. Now let's just run the test subject through CMD. Now this has that, and also start this and stop this and close this and pause. Okay. Now we go to the very start. Yes, this gives you the list of what happened on the system. Now let's go to, okay. Notice how these three things, so CMD, calls background task, also all of those have the same thing. Okay, there's something else. There's an MCA file that it executed. So let's find the test subject. SVC host. Oh, it's a DNS test. Okay. Test subject. So this is faster to find it. Okay, as you can see, this CMD, name invalid, obviously, and then it has a create file registry operation. And it gives you that the CMD created test subject.exe, which is going to, have those. This is the prefetch of CMD itself. So it's not of the autoclear itself, but those are supposed to be, at least one of these are meant to be, supposed to be for the autoclear. At least one of those. However, we have found the event that initially has created the autoclear. What we can do now is that we can check the path of the file. So it's there, then we have the result, and then we have the detail. Detail of the file obviously is in the events, so we don't really have anything else. But this doesn't really give us much information. However, the following and the previous events, registry queries, shows you quite sort of information, because this one shows you that the file, most likely, so this doesn't mean that the file was generated or logged anywhere, but this tells you that they were most likely, created or detected in the registry. This one's also supposed to be auto-clear, yeah, because it's the same CMD. So everything you see with the CMD is an auto-clear. In this case, the file doesn't recognize, the CMD doesn't recognize what's going on, right? It doesn't know that it just executed an auto-clear. That's why this event exists. This one gives you that it recognizes the directory it's in, so that it has to resolve the directory for it to execute the auto-clear. That's why it's just, trying to still resolve the directory. And then you obviously have to just go to the test subject next. Then you have the create file. Okay, this doesn't really give us much information except for the kernel base and NTDLL. Always check the NTDLL, because this is most of the... Also, this also gives us these drivers that are in use when it comes to this. So that's interesting. So this is at the very least, very interesting. But this still doesn't give us enough information for any conclusions other than this file was executed, but it doesn't really understand the name of the file. However, we also have the registry entries, which are supposed to also have the contents of the auto saved keyword directory, right? So this is still trying to resolve the directory of the auto-clicker. So that's why it takes a file. So create file. Now this is supposed to be something that gives us clues. Create file means that this file was detected, at least. It was read, and that it was created right now. So it's now reading the contents of the file, so it's trying to understand the execution policy of the file, right? So whether it has to run as admin, whether it needs to run as a regular user, and stuff like that. Also, this doesn't really give us much information. Okay, rate open key. Now this is interesting because this gives you the image file execution options. This just gave us a registry key where this execution was logged. Okay. Do you see the test subject? I don't. Okay, so this means that the test subject execution logged here, but it also then deleted itself. Yeah, so it also deletes itself from registry. That's also what we established. Also, this is also the contents of the notepad, so that's interesting. So we established that this application, so OP-Autoclear, actually deletes itself from registry, which is the current version image. Stuff like that. I'm using this here, actually. Maybe you guys will find it useful sometime. So this, because this is still related to registry and the CMD, and this is most definitely resolving things about the auto-clear, right? So this is still the auto-clear operations right here. Create mapping file locked with only readers, which means that, yeah, right, so it has to resolve the contents of the file just to understand what exactly that file is, what it does, before it initiates an execution call. So this is step by step. Okay, query user internal. I have no idea why an auto-clear would query user. Oh no, this is an operation this means that this exact timestamp logged this auto-clear in user journal. Okay, so that's interesting. Now that's interesting. Let's go to the radio open key. So this is going to give us another. Yeah, okay, this is the same registry key. Right, so you just get the point, right? You really have to dig deep into the analysis of a file MSNPNG, which means that it's also not filtered by the antivirus. Yeah. Right. That's yeah. Very logical. So we want to get rid of the MSNPNG. And then we have this execution. Okay, process create, finally. We have the process creation, which is the test subject. So this autoclear tells you exactly the environment. So like how exactly it was executed. So what does this tell you? It was executed from the downloads. Conspec, so it was executed from cmd.exe. And it was also, which is located in the, these drives. So this just gave us a lot of information. And it also gave us the PowerShell modules, really. So it also uses PowerShell modules for some identifiable reason. Now this, and then we have the thread creations. Threads are over here. I have no idea what those threads are, but then we have the registry keys. Upsert DLLs. So this one also loads the DLLs for the applications. In this case, for this autoclear to work, it needs DLLs. But then this got deleted because it's not a legitimate registry query. So what we established right now, thus far, is that, yeah, so you can use this tool, Process Monitor, to actually identify the behavior of a malware or an application. Right, so I guess you guys can get used to that eventually. Do you guys have any questions so far about that topic? Okay, as you say. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, apart from this, obviously you guys should also have search everything in the background running. So that's how you monitor things manually. So that's how you do forensics of a malware behavior. So that's how you analyze and bypass, if you want to call it that. And then we have the drafting analysis reports, and then we have the criminalized practices. I think it's better if I actually send you guys the drafts of those instead of, because the first two parts have been covered, which means that only I think the writing part is left, which I know that you guys really would want me to explain to you the law, how exactly you would process the evidence, how exactly you would attach this, that. It's a very interesting process, to be honest with you, but I have not prepared a case for it, which is necessary for those types of things. So I think I'm gonna merge that for tomorrow's webinar for the MFT. So yeah, so this webinar is also over now. There's not much we have to, or I have to teach you. So it has been 1 hour, exactly 1 hour. See, it was just 1 hour. I was about to, so imagine if I continued with those two, so it would actually be 2 hours. So it was 1 hour too. Today, both webinars took 2 hours. I'm going to send you guys the PowerPoint right now. Where is it? Oh yeah, so I'm going to send you guys the PowerPoint right now, and then I'm also going to prepare some other material for you. I don't really have the time to sit and prepare them for this webinar today, because I was also working on the tomorrow's webinars resources, which is more important. So I hope that you guys can attend for tomorrow too. Do you guys have any other questions unrelated to today's webinar, or like in general, anything anything you want to learn? I don't know, like just in general. Do you have questions? I just showed you how you analyze. Webinars are on Saturday and Sunday. So what I'm planning is that I think I will stop or pause webinars on weekends, so the 2 break days, so that you guys don't get overwhelmed. So it's basically gonna be like school. So 5 days of me teaching you guys, 2 days of rest. In those 2 days, although I'm gonna send you guys readable material and prepare material for you guys, which will accumulate to at least 105 more hours, which means that you guys get at least 120 hours of webinars by the end of the course. How do you analyze bypass behaviors in the PC? That's what I just showed you. That's what. Okay. So first of all, you have to install sys1, so which requires a restart of the system. You also install process monitor. You also have search everything open in the background so that you monitor everything, and you initiate the bypass on your device. What you do after that is obviously exactly what I just did, what I just showed you. That's going to give you more information about the bypass. You should also just upload the files on the virus total if you want to check what the file does. But the bypass is process monitor is your best go, and system sysmonitor. The next thing you do is what I showed you in OS forensics. So you have to just investigate your own device. Another thing you should do is that you should also investigate event logs. You should investigate all the other forensic artifacts that you know of, which, I have a guide on that. You should refer to that guide. However, that is a great topic for the next webinar, so I think that I'm gonna do that after tomorrow for digital forensic course, because that's actually a very nice topic, because it's a very long process which I have been doing every time I came across with a new bypass in order to detect that bypass. There are things that you guys should, for example, the thing that I showed you yesterday in the personalized course, the detection of, was it yesterday? I don't remember, like probably 2 days ago or yesterday, the detection of, what are they called? What's it called? I forgot. Let me see. Packages, yeah. Detection for packages. Now those detections actually require you to know a lot about how computers work, which is why I recommend you guys actually revise all the webinars, revise all the free material that I have released. Also revise the extended course material, read everything that I sent you. Also read the AI boosted page, because these are research on important things, for example, artifacts for execution and evidence of execution and evidence of existence, and these ones. Read a lot. Otherwise, you won't really understand what I will do in 2 days, because it is a very complex and very advanced system analysis that might take me 2 hours to explain. So be prepared in 2 days. That will be a very long webinar on digital forensics, which will be purely practical from start to finish. I will have no PowerPoint presentations. I won't have anything. I'm going to showcase everything to you, and so it's going to be a video. I'm also going to obviously make documents after the webinar, but it's basically going to be vastly only manual methods. With that being said, this webinar is also over. I have to go now, which means that we'll have to